There's a big bunch of stories that I've pulled. As I read them, I find these stories and I pull them and I send them over. I'm like, Jen, take a look at this one. Jen, take a look at this one. And we have quite a lot of them, and they're all up on a wall, represented by a card and a log line. And she reads them all too. And then we start pulling together, like we think it's going to be 10, we think it's going to be 12 this season. Well, this one's really short, so we could maybe get 12.
As soon as we get the drawings done and it's in the edit, I always find a piece of music and use that to cut the edit to, because that gives it like a rhythmic pace in the editing.
For the revolution. For the revolution.
So there are times when it feels like, for me, like major studios are terrified of experimenting with their approach to animation. This makes Love, Death, and Robots all the more important for the art form and an example of how taking risks can yield incredible results. When you started the show, did you think that you would be here 4 volumes later?
No, I didn't. But you're always hopeful. But I always feel like I was so grateful to just have the chance, because David and I really pitched heavy metal for so long. We just wanted to make that movie, which would have been like a one-off with the hope of maybe making more. But, and that would have felt like an accomplishment. This feels like an accomplishment and a gift, because we've gotten to make so many stories, 35. And I really feel like we're in a weird way opening doors in the industry too, for those same risks that you talk about. People don't seem to be as afraid of a 5-minute short or a 15-minute short as they are of something that costs a lot of money and is a feature film or series.
That's true, but I mean, the impact that you can make in that amount of time is pretty remarkable. Jennifer, how about you?
Oh, gosh, I think that you never do a show thinking you'll get more, because that's just, testing fate here. You just got to do a beautiful thing when you have the chance to do it. I think each season has been absolute joy. The same group of people have been working together for years. We find all these amazing collaborators all around the world to work with. And it's just a way of each year just finding things that haven't been seen before. It's risky. I think people, especially in times like these with industries all in upheaval, risk is not necessarily the most popular thing, but risk is what makes people take notice. And it's the thing that will allow this industry to survive going forward and be relevant. So I hope this continues for ages and ages and ages, because this is how you find new voices and find ways out of trouble.
I will say there's a moment at the end, like when the order solidifies for every season, that I look at the stories that weren't picked, and I do go, am I ever going to get a chance to tell that one if I don't do it now? And it's always a little moment of fear.
Sticking with that, actually, you always find unique stories and animations to share with the series. I've seen all of them up until this point. What does your selection process look like when you're planning a new season? Do creatives submit pitches? Is there a waiting list? What does that look like?
A waiting list.
I mean, who knows, right?
There's a big bunch of stories that I've pulled. As I read them, I find these stories and I pull them and I send them over. I'm like, Jen, take a look at this one. Jen, take a look at this one. And we have quite a lot of them, and they're all up on a wall, represented by a card and a log line. And she reads them all too. And then we start pulling together, like we think it's going to be 10, we think it's going to be 12 this season. Well, this one's really short, so we could maybe get 12. And then after moving the pieces around the board for a little while, there's always those ones, like I start that process by pulling, these are the ones I most want to see for whatever reason. And it changes, because some of them I most want to see this season have been there all along. It's just can't tell you why. Now I want to see it. And so we try and build around that, and then we're always trying to build a mix of a little something for everybody, both stylistically and tonally as well.
Nice. Jennifer, so I have to confess, I was not prepared for the emotional gut punch of your Spider Rose short. It's a brilliant animation and among my favorites of the series overall. What is it about Bruce Sterling's work that you find so compelling, and are there other stories in his universe that you would like to adapt?
There are so many stories in this universe. It's vast. It's the size of an actual universe. It's kind of nuts. Um, Tim's episode Swarm was happening in the same universe, and it's all this like tiny little glimpse into that world. What makes them beautiful is that they're so thought out. They're so real. It's not like there's any part of it that is not reasoned through. So just being able to do this very emotional little glimpse into that world was just a chance you can't pass up. Spider Rose is so much of a nuanced character. There's so much going on, and there's so when you talk about the emotion, that's the thing that attracted me most to this because how is it that you can wring that much emotion in 14 minutes?
Yeah.
That's hard, very much a difficult thing. So yeah, it was. I love the challenge. I love the depth of this universe. So just bringing it to this sort of visual form was just really difficult, but also really rewarding.
And she
That's
does love
awesome.
bringing a specter of evil to all things cute. It's like a thing where she hooks you with the cute, but she's really doing it so she can like clobber you with the evil. Um, it's true.
Balance.
It's got a hell of an ending, I'll say that much. I'm really psyched to be here with you today. I was doing a little bit of research and found out some cool stuff. So much of Love, Death, and Robots reminds me of MTV's Liquid Television. Then
Mm,
I
mm,
discovered that you were a storyboard artist for Aeon Flux.
yeah.
I cannot begin to tell you how much like that portion of the show informed my love of animation. It was one of my earliest memories of discovering animation that felt like you had to hide it from your parents. Um, do you have any examples of what helped inform like your style and approach to animation from back in the day?
Well, quite simply, I wouldn't be sitting here right now if it wasn't for my interaction with Peter Chung.
Ooh,
I saw the Liquid TV stuff too, and I was like not even 20 years old, and I rented a car, and I drove to California from Canada, and before the days of the internet, I somehow managed to locate Peter Chung, and I showed him my work, and he gave me a job, and
wow.
and I didn't come home for 10 years. I ended up in San Francisco working, on well, I missed the Liquid TV stuff, but we worked on the half hour, Flux stuff. And, Peter was like my mentor back in those early days. And then until I saw that gorilla stuff, and then I sort of jumped from one Peter to another Peter, and I started working for Pete Candelan in London and Jamie Hewlett. And I mean, my style is very much a combination between, one extreme, it's the manga influenced, Flux stuff, and the
Right.
Jamie Hewlett sort of simplified graphic style on the other, and I'm sort of right in the middle of those two things.
So you were an animation director for several of the Gorillaz music videos, correct?
Yeah, it was hard to sort of move up the totem pole there in the production pipeline.
Yeah, I
Pete was
bet.
Pete was very much like the director on that stuff, and Jamie was the creator. And
Hmm.
so, we sort of switched off animation director roles.
Does music play a role in your creative process? Do you listen to anything in particular, especially while you were creating 400 Boys for Love, Death, and Robots?
Oh yeah, totally. You know, as soon as we get the drawings done and it's in the edit, I always find a piece of music and use that to cut the edit to, because that gives it like a rhythmic pace in the editing. And
Okay,
then,
some people don't like that though. Like they say that it changes the animation flow. You actually use music though.
oh hell yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
absolutely. So if there's a
It's the first time I've heard that.
if there's a regular rhythm, with a beat happening every 16 frames, and then there's little sub beats happening in between that you can time the animation to,
Right.
all the hits and all this sort of thing, you know, and we use that to sort of give it like a subliminal kind of pacing. And then as we started to get into this, you know, that music that I picked out was a Primal Scream song from Train Spotting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
And you know, at a certain point, you know, Victoria at Blur is like, okay, we need to start thinking about music here. And I said, well, can we just use that music? And they're like, what? And then finally we thought, okay, let's try it. And so we actually got the permission to use that from Primal Scream.
That's awesome. Do you have like a playlist that you listen to while you're being like creative on the shorts?
Oh, totally.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I would love to
It's
see
always
that. That sounds
it's
so
always
cool.
music driven, that stuff. I don't know if you've seen Pear Cider and Cigarettes, but that's all you just go from one song to another in that.
I don't know that I've seen that. I'm gonna
I'll
have to
check
write
it
that
out.
down.
Pear Cider and Cigarettes. It's my short film. It was nominated for an Oscar back in 2017.
Okay, I definitely haven't seen that. I gotta track that down. That sounds
Go to
awesome.
if you go to my YouTube page, you can watch it for free. You don't have to pay for it.
Sweet. All right, I'll do that after this.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are a lot of gnarly deaths in 400 Boys. I'm curious to know if characters like die in a predetermined way in the script, or do you get to determine how they're snuffed out? Like, do you get vague instructions and then you creatively get to decide?
You know, the joy that I have working on these little shorts is there's a short story that happened with the Zima Blue, Ice, and now 400 Boys. And in each case, I always like to, in spite of what the script says, you know, I always like to refer back to the original text and try to sort of interject some little pieces that we might have passed over. And you know, there's little bits like the bridge getting thrown at the moon, little expressions here and there, some description, but definitely the way each boy died, I wanted to sort of maintain something specific from the original story. I mean, we had to sort of connect the dots in a certain kind of way with all the intercutting from the 3 different scenarios.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah, because there's simultaneous action happening all at the same time, and you kind of want to move each piece of action forward while you're cutting away. So, you know, there's a little bit of tricky editing sort of stuff going on. For me, I mean, you know, I'm sure other editors or filmmakers might be better at that than us, but you know, that was sort of the puzzle that we had to figure out.
Well, I think you did a great job. Honestly, I won't spoil it here because I want people to go and check it out. But there was one death in particular that, like, I literally covered my mouth and was like, oh, for that one. It was great. All right. Robert, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I can't wait for people to check out 400 Boys and the rest of Love, Death, and Robots.
Okay, if you check out Pear Cider and Cigarettes, remember it's a
Yep.
two drink movie.
Awesome. I'm going to go do that right after this.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.